as of late, I've been getting a little bit more evidence than I would have anticipated for theism. Maybe seeing some arguments in a new light, like some of the argument, some of the objections to fine tuning that I'd previously thought were very good. I now think they're like they're probative, but maybe they don't ultimately work. So I've become at least slightly more open to, let's say, a fine tuning argument, and that has correspondingly at least slightly shifted something in my mind. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, since you brought it up, what are the objections that you once thought like definitive, but now are
Oh
less
no.
clear about?
Oh no. Um. Okay. So if we compare the theories, right? Yeah. What were some of those? I think maybe uh two that I'll focus on. Maybe.
Hmm.
Let's see. Well, one of them is I had always been quite pulled by the thought that actually maybe I want to say two. Um, no, though three. Okay, so there's so many things going through my mind right now. Okay, so
Yes.
let me just speak as I write them down. The third, I'll say multiverse. Second one, I will say is let's say theism's predictive problem, and that has to do with divine psychology and whatnot. Um, and then the first one is epistemically illuminated region. Um, so yeah, there are these three things that kind of significantly worried me. One of them was even the best proponents of the fine tuning argument, like Luke Barnes, Robin Collins, etc. There are others, of course. I'm not saying that those are the only best proponents, um, but they recognize that we kind of only have an epistemic purchase on the proportion of life permitting universes within a very small fraction of the total possible universes that there could be. Right? So, there is this epistemically illuminated region, which, at least as I understand it, you know more about this than I do, but at least as I understand it, there are these universes which share our law structures, right? And we can, through running various simulations and whatnot, we can tweak the values of the constants within those law structures within a certain physically meaningful range. And then we can reasonably well determine whether or not the universe that results would be conducive to life. Now, I'd always sort of worried, why are we holding the structure of the laws fixed? Um, maybe I can grant you that holding the structure of the laws fixed within that kind of small region of the total possibility space of ways that there could be a universe, maybe I can grant you that, yeah, there's only a very tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of those universes which are life permitting. So, there's this epistemically illuminated region for which we can gain a kind of epistemic purchase of the fraction of life permitting universes. But, you know, that doesn't tell us the probability of a life permitting universe under naturalism or theism, there's all these other possible universes which vary the structure of the laws themselves. And it's that seemed to me always to be the relevant probability. And it just seems like we're hopeless in determining that probability. So that's something that I'd always worried about. Something then that has sort of been bothering me about that objection now is well, and Luke Barnes has made this point, and I don't know, it seems reasonable. Um, well, listen, let's just take this in steps. We can do our Bayesian updating in steps, right? The first step is that the universe which exists has such and such law structures. Okay, that can first be a datum, and we see how well that's predicted by naturalism and theism. And let's just say, yeah, we don't really know which. I mean, we don't have any reason to think one of them better predicts it than the other. So it's not evidence for either, and so we just put it in our background knowledge. After conditionalizing on it, doesn't affect the posterior probability of theism or naturalism, but we just put it in our background knowledge then. Okay, well then now we've got theism together with these law structures. And then what's the probability that, given that we have these law structures, the constants will fall within the narrow life permitting range? And then what's the probability of that happening conditional on naturalism together with there being such law structures? So we can sort of just put it in the background. And then it seems like we get significant confirmation for theism, so the thought goes, by the constants falling within the narrow life permitting range. So that kind of epistemically illuminated region objection, pushed by, among others, Aaron Lucas, etc., initially bothered me about it, but maybe as of late I've gotten a little bit more concerned about it, and maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't work. I don't know what you think.
I think my reply that I find convincing is that exact one. That the reason you can put it in the background information is that neither hypothesis under consideration, if we're zeroing in on naturalism or theism, has an explanatory edge. And so even if you don't include it in the background, but just say you plop it in as an additional piece of evidence, like the law structures themselves. Well, when you expand that all out in the odds form of Bayes' theorem, the relevant comparison between the law structures given naturalism and the law structures given theism, well, that'll just equal one if it's no more likely on one or the other, and so then it disappears. And so it's for that reason that you can include it in the background. And I think that point generalizes that any aspect of or any aspect of the evidence under consideration, any relevant fact that is neutral with respect to the relevant explanatory options, well, can put that in the background because it'll make no
Yeah,
difference to the probabilities. It's only
yeah, and
when one
even
hypothesis makes that the fact more likely than the other that it would be illicit to like gerrymander your evidence by putting it in the background.
right. But even then, you would just have to first, like update on it, right? So like you first update on it, and it'll lower. Yeah, let's say actually let's say we actually turned out like the law structures are
Mm.
actually better predicted by naturalism, but let's say it's only by like a factor of 10 or something. Like it only
Sure.
renders it like 10 times more likely. Well, then we update on it, and then after we update on it, okay, yeah, naturalism is now gets a boost. Over theism, but once we've updated it, we got to put it in our background. So then it still goes
Right.
in our background when we're assessing the new evidence, and
Sure.
then once we assess that new evidence, maybe the fine tuning data um, is going to be like 10 to the power of something, maybe much larger than one, favoring theism. So then even if the piece of data favors naturalism, it seems like yeah, we can still update on it, and then it's going to have to go in our background knowledge, and then boom, the argument can then get up and running, it seems. um,
Yeah. No, I think that is right. That if there is a difference in evidential impact or in the likelihoods, that doesn't necessarily undermine the fine tuning argument. But I guess I just don't see any reason to even grant that much. I feel like I
right.
don't know what the likelihood of our specific laws are given theism, but I also don't know what they are given naturalism. And from my vantage point, I don't see any reason to think those would be different. And
Yeah,
so
although
it's
I mean, I've this might be kind of silly, but like honestly, like if anything, I kind of think they're better predicted by theism than naturalism. I don't know, like our law structure, they're pretty elegant.
right,
They have just
right.
enough complexity to actually even be able to support life. I mean, I don't know, like if I just think like intuitively, just like all the different conceivable laws that there could be. I mean,
Yeah.
they could be like hopelessly gerrymandered. They could be like ludicrously complex. They could like even fail to apply to a reality. They could, I mean, conceivably, it's just like boatloads of them, it seems, would just like not give rise to anything interesting. They would either forbid anything interesting from coming about, or maybe they just like give rise to a very simple universe or something like that. But like, no, we find ones that are like kind of elegant and like discoverable somehow, and
Mm.
uh also at least permit for there being constants in there which do allow for significant interesting evolution and whatnot. So I don't know, if anything, I actually want to say it would favor potentially theism, the structure of the laws, but that's maybe silly, I don't know.
No, no. Far be it from me to argue against you here, but I think you could be right. I guess my only worry would be a similar worry that I'd raise with the psychophysical harmony argument, that there seems to be like a normalizability concern in the neighborhood that the space of possible law structures, I don't know, is probably infinite. And so I just don't know how to get a foothold on saying that the range of those that permit the goods you've outlined, like complexity and order and blah blah blah, is small compared to the range of possible law structures.
Yeah, it's
Like
really hard
what?
to put a measure on these things. I mean, that's a worry.
Yeah,
That is a serious worry. um but like, I don't know, I still think there's some force to it, just because it's
sure.
like, I don't know, like, if space-time is continuous,
Mm.
and I walk outside and I see the leaves arranged like "Welcome Home, Joe" or something like that. um I mean, listen, technically speaking, there are infinitely many arrangements that the
Yes.
leaves could have taken on, and sure, some like proper sub infinity of that like spells out a meaningful message or something, but it's like super hard to see how there could be a measure on this. And like, I mean, again, given that space-time is continuous, like it really could be any of continuum many arrangements. And then again, like there are so many different materials that it might have been made out of as well. It's like it's very, very difficult to give it like a precise measure on that. But like, come on, like we all infer design in this case, and we all can see that like this surely does still favor a kind of intentional manipulation hypothesis, because we can
Right,
kind
right.
of intuitively see that like, okay, sure, maybe it's difficult to put a precise measure on it, but like still, out of all the conceivable ways that they could have been measured, like, or all the conceivable ways that the leaves could have been arranged, it just seems like a very, in some intuitive sense, a very small portion of them are like meaningful arrangements, and like, we can see a motive for why like a designer, as it were, would do that sort of thing. So I don't know.
Mm.
I still think there may be force to that. But anyway, sorry I interrupted you. I just want to say I do share that worry, but I think there are reasonable ways to push back.
All right, so I'm happy with that back and forth on that objection. Objection number 2, Joe.
Which I have, become less confident in.
Right.
That would be